Hi, guys, it's Dr. Ryan, and today we're going to talk with a patient of mine who's been with me for quite some time, 3 years, and we're going to hear a little bit about his experience with the clinic. So, Tarl, why don't you take it away? Why don't you tell me a little bit about where you live, what you do, some of your hobbies, what your family life is like?
All right, wonderful. Yeah, glad to be here. I am a realtor. Sell real estate. I've been in real estate for about 28 years now. Live in the Salt Lake City area, suburb of Salt Lake. Fairly good-sized family. Most of my kids are all adults actually, and have two grandbabies. Probably my biggest hobby is hobby beekeep.
Interesting.
Honeybees. The most I've ever had is about 50 colonies. Other than that, I love sports and my family. They're my biggest love, I guess. So my wife and our six kids.
6 kids. Wow, that's
And two
amazing.
grandbabies.
And two grandbabies. That's wonderful. You don't
Yeah.
see a lot of big families these days, and it's great that you've been able to provide for them, and they've all been pretty well adjusted. Now you have two grandchildren that you can start the third generation off with. So, why don't we go ahead and kind of talk a
Yeah.
little bit about your experiences with the clinic? So, I want you to kind of rewind a little bit and think back to when you first started looking for a clinic to help you with hormonal optimization, with functional medicine, with longevity medicine. And what was it like in terms of the problems that you were trying to solve?
Prior to finding you, boy, I felt pretty miserable. I
Mm.
was really struggling with motivation, and by mid-afternoon, boy, I'd just crash and literally would have to take a nap almost every single day. I grew up from a teenager all the way till now trying to go to the gym on a relatively regular basis, but had gotten to the point probably prior to meeting you, probably about 8, 10 years where I didn't go on a consistent basis. And there toward the end, right before I found you, I was struggling just to talk myself into doing any kind of exercise at all. And my weight had really ballooned. I had put on a lot of weight that I had not previously been used to. And that was causing me a lot of struggling with shortness of breath and really low energy levels. My sleep was just horrendous. I could not get decent night sleeps on a consistent basis. When I'd get a good night's sleep was after I had had a week's worth of no sleep, and then I'd just crash, and it was just like constantly this. And I was really struggling to figure out, man, what is wrong with me? I don't have motivation. I can't even get myself to do the things to try to lose the weight. And I've done different diets and fad things over the years and lost the weight, and immediately within months gained it all back and more, and just nothing consistent. That was probably my biggest problem, is because the way I felt, I just couldn't do anything on a consistent basis, whether it was eat right or exercise or even my business. And it was kind of beginning to struggle. And so I was really trying to figure out, man, what is wrong with me? I've got to do something, because this is just not working. And I got to get my energy levels to go somewhere, because they were completely in the tank. And so I found you.
Yeah.
And literally the way I found you was, now I had been looking and I've been hearing ads on the radio and things about low testosterone and, hey, we can really help you and things like that.
Mhm.
And you came across my Facebook feed initially. And I looked at it and I kind of brushed by. I think I liked it and then just kind of brushed by it and didn't think too much about it. And it popped up again a little while later. And after seeing that probably 3 or 4 times, I'm like, man, I need to just call and just see if there's something that could maybe be done. And that's what I did. Because at that point, I was to the point that something had to happen. And I had actually gone to our family practitioner, and he didn't really give me a lot of help. He took blood work and he wanted to put me on stuff to get my cholesterol level lowered. And I told him, no, let me see what I can do about my diet. Let's not jump to that yet. Because I just really don't feel like I was old enough to be anywhere near that type of a thing. And I didn't want to do it either, of course. So at that point, I was to the point, I had to find something. And you kept popping up in my Facebook. And so I'm like, I'm just going to call and see, because I had no idea what it was going to cost me, or if it was going to be, something that I could work into I had no idea. Just from what I had seen and what I read on your site, I was like, this really is intriguing. I need to at least look into it. So I did.
Yeah.
Best decision I've ever made.
Well, I thank you for that. I'm really happy you took the chance on us, because it's hard, just deciding between different providers, and then it is really a leap of faith when you select someone. But I'm really happy that you felt that was the right choice. Just going back to that though, you did a great job about talking about the problems you had. It seems like they were primarily centered around your energy levels and your physique. The fact that you weren't able to make the changes you used to. You were an avid gym goer since your teenage years, and you were unable to do so, and you're very frustrated because you knew what to do. You dieted and you trained before, but you couldn't keep the motivation levels to be consistent with the diet and training program. But you didn't really talk so much about, you kind of touched briefly about how it affected your business, your family. What about your business and family?
It was definitely affecting my business. I wasn't going to go under or anything like that, but I was struggling for motivation to do it, because when you're a realtor, your primary job is marketing, and that takes a pretty good high energy level to do that on a consistent basis. You gotta be able to come across and be personable and have a high energy level for people to kind of gravitate toward you. And I was struggling with that in a big way. And I could tell that it was becoming an issue. And honestly, just when you're self-employed like this, you own your own business, if you don't get up and do what you need to do, you're unemployed. You're not making, right? And so you've got to find the motivation to do it. If not, you're in trouble. And that's where I was really struggling with that. And in terms of the family, it's pretty funny. I mean, it's not funny. It's kind of unfortunate, but they said I was pretty irritable. And I'm sure I was, because when you're not sleeping, you have lower energy levels, you're frustrated, you can't figure out what's going on. I'm sure I was pretty irritable. My wife thinks I'm a completely different person now. My stress levels have gone down, oh my goodness, 100-fold. Wow. We're getting, not that we ever didn't get along, we've got along great. We have a wonderful marriage, but we are so much closer. And I'm sure it's because I feel so much different. I've got so much more motivation. I'm much easier to live with. And my kids said the same thing. They called me old man, and that I was ornery and irritable. And I was, there's no doubt that I was. I'm so much more the way I used to be when I was younger and felt better and had those energy levels and the motivation. There was just probably a good 10-year stretch that I dealt with this. And it took me that long to finally just say, man, something's got to change. This can't continue. So yeah, my family would tell you, they think, especially my wife, she'll tell you, she thinks I'm a completely different person, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally and all of that. It's like we're falling back in love all over again. Not that we ever fell out of love, but I mean, we've really gotten a lot closer since I found you. And that is a wonderful testament in my opinion, because it's been really a big blessing in a lot of ways.
I don't really consider myself much of like a counselor or a marriage counselor, but I do. Your situation is actually not unusual, because I've had many of my patients, both male and female, after they optimize their hormones. Because remember, optimizing your hormones plays a large role in terms of your motivation, your mood, and there's many studies have indicated, poor hormonal optimization, testosterone, DHA, pregnenolone have been associated with depression and anxiety, right? And so when you optimize your hormones, you just feel so much better, and you can be a better husband, a better father, a better boss at your job, which is great. I do want to kind of double click on one thing. You mentioned that it did take you some time to select the clinic, and I kind of want to ask you a little bit about that. What were some of the specific obstacles you needed to personally overcome when you started as a client of the clinic? Was there something in particular? Was there some sort of issue that gave you some hesitation to start?
Honestly, really, I didn't very much because I was to a point, I think I'd been dealing with it long enough
Mm-hmm.
that I was just almost in a state of desperation.
Mm-hmm.
I just had to make some kind of a change. And so I was looking for anything that would help me. And I just, for whatever reason, I don't know exactly because I've been with you long enough now that I don't remember exactly 3 years ago entirely,
Mm-hmm.
but something about you made me gravitate towards you and not even some of these local, because we have
Yeah.
local people that advertise all the time on here about, low testosterone, ED, all of the exact same similar things. But for whatever reason, something about what I saw and read in the Facebook post and on your website really gravitated me toward you. And so it's why I called, because it
Great.
wasn't something, obviously, I think when you're dealing with stuff like this, and men,
Mm-hmm.
we tend to not deal with our emotions and health in general, probably very
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And so it gets put on the back burner and we don't want to have to open up or talk to people about it. And so that was probably made me more comfortable with being able to talk to somebody on the phone as opposed to going to somebody here locally that I was
Yeah.
going to have to go see in person and talk to about ED and about
Yeah.
the different things that I was struggling with. And so I'm sure that had something to do with it as well.
Well, why don't we transition a bit and talk a little bit about your experiences after joining the clinic? And you touched upon a couple of them, but what I want to focus on first are some of the changes you noticed in your body and your overall health. And before I go any further, I do want to just say I am just amazed at the progress that you have made. I have some pictures here, which are just phenomenal. This is a few pictures that you had prior to you joining our proprietary Lean for Life program. And, you had some muscle mass on you, but you still had like a significant amount of adipose tissue, right? And you need to lose
A
that
lot of
unhealthy layer, right?
fat.
Right now, it's just remarkable the changes you've made. I mean, the muscle mass and the V taper you've gotten, it's just really, really amazing. So,
I cannot believe the difference. I just, it blows my mind how much of a difference that has made.
yeah.
Those pictures, they don't lie. That's the thing. I look at those all the time myself, and I'm constantly, every week when I take those photos, I go back and look at the very first one and compare it to, and it still blows me away how much of a difference that your
Yeah.
program and the Lean for Life program have done for me, because it's absolutely been amazing.
Yeah, like I mean, it's
Yeah,
been
look at that.
216 right here, and your absolute low is about like 188, 187. Just unbelievable
Hmm.
how much you've
Yeah.
lost in that time period, right? Almost 30 pounds. So it's really, really a
Mhm.
cool change. So I'm really happy to be part of
Yeah.
that. So obviously, you've made some great changes in terms of your physique, but what about some of the other changes that you noticed in terms of your health? Have you been sleeping better, for example?
I have a Fitbit watch that tracks all of my sleep patterns and all of that. And if you just saw what it looked like before I found you and now what it is so much better. My REM sleep is tons better. My deep sleep is tons better. My overall just amount of sleep that I get is better. Now, part of that is I am focusing on trying to get more sleep because it was a
Mhm.
recommendation that you gave. And so I do that. But in terms of actual sleep, I sleep tons better than I did. And I mean, the way I feel is just night and day, literally night and day.
Yeah,
But, you said I've lost 30 pounds roughly, but it's really closer to 50 pounds since I actually started with you
that's
in
true.
3 years
Yeah.
ago. It's actually 50 pounds, and I looked worse than what you saw that first picture if you had my
Yeah.
originals. So it's been a really dramatic change
Yeah.
in physique, and I love that. I do. I love the physique change, but honestly, that's probably not the biggest thing for me.
Hmm.
The biggest thing is really the way I feel mentally, physically. not the look side, but just physically feel. My energy levels, I don't crash in the middle of the day like I used to. And I was doing that for a good 10 years and I just don't do it. And I'm in the gym 4 days a week, weight training, and I'm cardio 6 days a week, minimum of a half hour. And this is the big difference. Prior to 3 years ago, it was all I could do to drag myself to the gym once or twice a week. And sometimes it'd be weeks before I'd go. And now I don't miss. I'm in there 4 days a week weight training, and I'm in there 6 days a week with cardio, and I just don't miss. I look forward to it, where before it was just, I gotta go do this. I don't want to do this. I'm not going to go do this, and I don't end up in the gym. And it's completely changed. I look forward to going in there. It's actually it's a stress reliever. And I know people say that a lot about weight training and cardio and physical activity. It is a really good stress reliever for me. And now that I've been doing it consistently enough and been in your program and getting my hormone levels, optimized and my weight down and putting on some muscle mass where I physically feel better, my motivation levels are through the ceiling. And not just to go to the gym, but my family life and my business, everything, all of that motivation is just skyrocketed.
Yeah, and let's kind of transition to that as well. So, I mean, obviously, you felt better, you look better, your sleep is better, your energy levels are improved. And one thing I want to point out is I don't consider you an old man at all. I definitely don't. I'm in my mid 40s, and but you accomplished all of this in your 50s, which is crazy,
yes.
right?
Yes.
For the longest time, and before I got into this, I thought that once you hit your late 40s, 50s, things had to necessarily slow down, but you are testament to the fact that that's not true at all, right? You've completely changed the pathway, the course of your life at an age where a lot of people are starting to slow down, right?
Well, I can't tell you how many people that I talk to that say, man, when you hit your 50s, it's just all downhill from there. It's just, everything starts to fall apart, they'll tell you. And I was feeling that way, but I wasn't even 50 at the time. I feel so much younger. I feel so much younger, and I don't feel like I'm falling apart at all anymore. Where before I had aches and pains every which way, and I still have some aches and pains from stupidity as a teenager and injuries that I had in college and whatnot that they probably never go with, but they're a lot better than they were, tons better than they were, and I know, because I still see your ads all the time pop around in my feeds, and it talks about feeling 10 years younger. I don't feel 10 years younger. I feel a good 20 years younger or more, really, because I honestly have not felt this good in at least 20 years, and maybe even 25, but certainly 20 years.
That's just so crazy. And that is a very common sentiment among many of my patients. They actually feel better than they did in their 30s, right? Yeah, which is kind of really, really strange. But to me, at least, you think that, you're in your 30s, you're at your peak, but when you optimize your health, you optimize your vitamin levels, optimize your hormones, you can just do so much. So I'm so happy you're experiencing that.
Absolutely.
I do want to transition a little bit into some of the changes you saw in your career and your family. Now, you kind of alluded to those things in the very beginning of this interview, but let's talk about them specifically. So, in terms of your career as a real estate investor, what was it that you felt changed after you started therapy with me?
Well, and I kind of alluded to this earlier. It's that motivation. I was selling real estate in the 30s. Mm-hmm. Okay. I've been doing this a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And I had lost that, what you call the edge, or, I didn't have that energy level and the motivation and the excitement in my voice and in my demeanor that I used to have in my 30s. And that definitely affects you when you're dealing with real estate and sales, any kind of sales for that matter, but certainly with what I deal with in real estate sales, you've got to have that, and it's got to be coming out of you in terms of, that energy, and so that you're able to attract people to you and not give off the wrong vibe and lose the listing or lose the buyer that you're trying to bring on board with you. That was down in a very significant way. I've got that level now in spades, even compared to the way I had it in my 30s when I was newer to real estate. So big difference.
Yeah, a lot of people, they talk about the enthusiasm, the positivity, yes. The belief that they can go on to bigger and better things just kind of returns after they engage in a good longevity program. So I'm glad that you experienced that as well, and your career's reflective of that. What about some of the changes in your family? Like, you did allude that you've rejuvenated your relationship with your wife, but what else?
Yeah, and our relationship's always been good, but there was definitely an irritability and just kind of general orneriness of just not feeling good and not having the energy levels. We go hiking, we go camping now, where I didn't do that. I mean, we would go camping periodically, but try to get me to go on a hike. It wasn't going to happen, I just didn't have the energy or anything. And I have been rappelling. The last 2 summers, we've gone rappelling. I've got a buddy that we've done that with, and done some pretty decent, a couple 150 foot rappels into a slot canyon, followed by a 200 foot rappel off of an arch down in southern Utah. Just amazing video footage. And you'd never talked me into doing that 4 or 5 years ago. I just wouldn't have done it. And back when I was in college, man, I'd done that all day long, and I had lost that. And so, with my family, it's a stark difference. It really is. Plus the grandbabies. I mean, I had no idea how life-changing that was going to be. Those 2 little babies just absolutely melt me. So.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing because, and that's something I hear from many individuals when they get the chance to become a grandparent. They're either they're not healthy enough to enjoy it the level they would like, right? Yeah. Like in my personal experience, I actually did not know my grandparents because they were far too ill or sick really to make much of an impact on my life, right? But you obviously are not in that situation. You have the potential to make a lot of changes, a lot of and influence them in a really positive, wonderful way. So that's great.
I look at my parents, my dad and my mom. Their health level, even at my age, was way worse. And now they're much older and doing much worse. My poor mom has Alzheimer's and is very advanced, and my dad takes care of her, but he's not healthy at all. It just really struggles. I mean, they're just shy of 80. And so that's something I'm really excited about, because not that he doesn't know his grandkids, because he does, and he has a lot of grandkids, but he didn't do near the activities that I'm able to do with my kids and my grandkids, because I just have I'm just so much more healthy and got so much more motivation and excitement. So,
Well, that is really, really amazing, man. I'm really happy that the clinic could be a small part of that. Well, so we talked a little bit about the changes that happened in your physique, your career, your family. Were there any other benefits that came from working with the clinic that you didn't really disclose or talk about?
Well, certainly ED was an issue for me for a good 10 years, and a very big source of frustration, as you can imagine. Gone. Could not be better. And so absolutely, that was a big plus. The Lean for Life program, life-changing for me. Really life-changing for me, what that has done for me since you put me in that part of the program. It's just been absolutely wonderful.
Just to touch upon those 2 things, I've been on TRT for many years, and prior to getting on it, EDs, it was a concern for me, except I had that as a 20-year-old, right? And so, I mean, I started quite early because it's something my mother had taken when she was pregnant with me that led to me having low testosterone levels. But yeah, it's a concern that a lot of guys have, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. I'm glad it improved, but testosterone replacement therapy can make a big difference in regards to that aspect. And then the other aspect of it's not just hormonal optimization, it's your diet and training regimen. And that's kind of where I draw upon my background competing. I mean, it helps a lot. And it as you mentioned, when you eat the right foods, when you change your macros the right way, when you do cardio, when you train right, it just makes a huge difference in your results. And that's been demonstrated.
Right. And one other thing, I really was struggling with joint pain, especially in my elbows, especially when I first started working out again regularly. And I literally have little to no joint pain anymore, outside of one of my knees, because it doesn't have any cartilage in it. I had knee surgery when I was younger, but my joint pain is almost non-existent. Whereas before, it was, in some cases, was pretty miserable.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, well, to wrap things up here, I'm going to ask you one last question. What would you tell someone who's watching this testimonial and is uncertain about joining the clinic?
Oh my goodness. Don't put it off. Just don't put it off. I put it off way too long because I didn't have a lot of this up until shortly before I found you, but there was a good year, maybe year and a half, that I had seen and heard the radio ad, maybe even 2 years, probably, the radio advertisements and the TV advertisements for it. And, it was in the back of my mind, but I wish I had pulled the trigger way before I did. I really wish I had called you way before I did, or found you way before I did, because it has made a huge difference. So I'd tell anybody if you're on the fence, pull the trigger. I'm telling you, you will feel 100-fold better. It's not going to be overnight. It's not going to be immediate, but I'm telling you, you stick with it, within weeks, you're going to start feeling way different. And you're going to look back a year or two, or in my case, 3 years back, and be I am mind blown. Literally mind blown at the difference. When I think back to the way I was before and where I am now, physically, mentally, emotionally, you call it every which way, I feel 100-fold better. And you saw the photos of the difference in the last while with that Lean for Life. I mean, just absolutely wonderful. Don't put it off. It's just not worth it. It really isn't. You'll wish you had, because I wish that I had started way before, or found you way before I did.
Well, I'm really happy that Summa Up and I could have helped you in that regard, and that you've seen the changes you made. But I do want to emphasize you've worked really hard as well, and a lot of this is on you. I mean, your ability to make the change, to join the clinic, to take the supplements, to work out, to eat the right foods. It's not easy, but you did it, and as you can tell, it was worth it.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, it definitely was easier once my hormone levels were in check and more optimized. And you're right, it is harder. There's nothing easy about it, but it so much better. So much better.
Okay. Well, Tarl, I really appreciate you sharing your story with me, and I really appreciate you being a patient of the clinic.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.